Hello, and welcome to another episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. We are continuing our theme of Savathun stuff, I guess. We finished Truth to Power last episode, as well as Ikora kind of explaining to Arak Jalal of Dead Orbit her ideas of what truth to power might be and what it might mean. We talked at length about what we thought it might mean, and had some cool theories come out of that. Uh, so we are continuing our kind of Savathun story train here. But it's not just Savathun anymore. We're kind of transitioning to some other characters that are interacting with and around her. Specifically, Eris Mourn and Xivu Arath. In our next readings, which are all going to be from the book Sororicide, which launched with Season of the Witch.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited with this. We're kind of like moving forward. A lot of the stories that we've done here on the podcast have all been like stuff in the past, stuff that hasn't happened uh, um, during active Destiny. Like a few of them, yeah, we've kind of gone into kind of some of the more recent stuff, um, going into like the battle over Saturn and some D1 stuff, some Taken King stuff, as well as stuff through Forsaken and Beyond Light and stuff like that. So, like what Myth was saying, this is an interesting book that we're going to start here tonight. This is the eighth book of sorrow, from my understanding. Uh,
Yes. Yep.
to be added on to were the original so the original books of sorrow, there were five of them, right?
Original Books of Sorrow. Well, now you're making me second guess myself.
This is what I do. I create little bits of information for it to look up. uh but yeah, so the original books of sorrow are obviously that's like the hive bible. That's the hive history, like everything about the hive, everything that's ever happened to the hive, as written by the hive. um
Yes, there were five.
And so then, if I'm correct, then 6 and 7 were from Dredge and Yor. That was his
Yep.
craziness that he added to the Books of Sorrow, because from his point of view, he was. I don't think he was becoming more Hive, but the stuff that he was doing was very Hive centric, and so him adding those books, of course, by of his own accord, kind of helped move the history of the hive along.
Yeah.
And so now we have book 8, which is I guess we'll start with some easy questions. And who's it written by?
So this one's kind of fun because we have three authors. It rotates between Eris Mourn, Savathun, and Xivu Arath, each kind of authoring another verse of the book as it goes on.
Okay. When since this is basically a history, since the books of sorrow are supposed to be a history, where does this take place?
So by all accounts, this is happening pretty much live, quote unquote, during Season of the Witch. It's kind of we're seeing the process of this book actively being written as the events of Season of the Witch unfold.
And is that because of Eris's transformation into the, um, I guess the fourth sister?
Yeah. That is very much a focus in the book, is kind of what that means for Eris to be making this transition into the Hive God of Vengeance,
Okay.
um, and what that means for their pantheon, and what that means for for Savathun and Xivu, and just like how Eris is now, whether she or the sisters like it or not, kind of cemented in Hive's history.
And not just their history, their religion,
Yeah.
their everything. Like because Eris has become a hive god of vengeance. She could have been a hive god of whatever. So any to me, any entity that is going to become hive god of X is now part of that religion now. Like that's just they're there. They exist within it. They are now part of the religion, part of the history. So, well, let's jump into it then, Myth. Let's hop into book. What verse? What would it be? So this is verse 8, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or
So
book 8, verse 1. I don't.
yeah, they call it verse 8:1.
Okay.
So but yeah, so we're start again. That book is Sororicide. It starts with chapter 1, which is being authored by Eris Mourn, and it's titled Prolegomena,
I hate all these
which
big words.
which is literally just a fancy way to say prologue. It is the critical introduction to a book. So, but this one, whereas the chapter is titled Prolegomena, the verse is titled The Sisters. So, verse 8:1, The Sisters, goes like this. Thoughts calcify into action, and actions calcify into being. Such is the ontology of hive magic. Such is the deck of whispers that has unfolded beneath my hands. These cards are curious objects, esoterica manifested by my power and the guardian's tithes. They have taken on our forms, myself, Savathun, and Xivu Arath, our loves and fears, our memories, our desires. Contemplate me, contemplate the hive. These cards unsettle me. I did not wish to be unveiled so, but perhaps that is the consequence of my transformation. I am seen as I am, beneath my bandage, beneath my skin. So too are Xivu Arath and Savathun unveiled. Through these cards we have found ourselves connected. Dear devoted sisters and I, inchoate but for the eyes I have stolen. I have deciphered the meanings of these cards, drawn from them the shapes of their reference. The whispers ask for reflection and meditation, speaking of the paths we have taken and who we have come to be. And so my utterings alongside those of the two surviving sisters have taken the form of a new book of sorrow, a bound collection of verses sung by their gods and delivered to their brood as scripture. Now I deliver it to my brood. Now I number among their gods. Ayat. That's the end of the first chapter.
So, not a whole lot to dissect here. Like Myth was saying, this is just a prologue. This is just kind of like her introduction to it. But there are a few things in here that I do want to touch on. The first one being the deck of whispers. That is the tarot card style deck that during the season of the witch, and I believe you can still do it now.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can. Yeah. You go through and you collect each one of the cards, and you're kind of building the deck as the season went along. And each one of the cards has something different on it, just like a typical tarot card deck. And Eris Mourn, is actually part of this deck. And so a lot of the deck has to deal with Savathun, with Xivu Arath, with Eris. I believe there's even an Oryx card in there, but I don't remember. I know there's a Wormed God card in there. But all of these, she's using these to kind of like try to figure out what the hell is going on around her.
Mm-hmm.
and while she's doing this, like I said at the beginning of the season, she turns herself into the hive god of vengeance, and so by doing so, she has written herself into their religion and their history now. And so it's funny too, because at the very end of this, she talks about how um, all the books of sorrow are a bound collection of verses sung by their gods delivered to their brood as scripture. Eris says, "I deliver it to my brood." Well, we are her brood.
Yeah.
we, we, the guardians, are little baby thralls and little baby acolytes and little baby wizards, little baby knights, feeding her. Because again, the whole thing with the hive is the energy transfer from the lower thralls and the lower echelons of the hive up to the god and then further up. And the whole reason we're doing this is to try to steal, and I put that in quotations, energy from Xivu Arath to kind of weaken her and get her in a state that she is not a god anymore. Because we've dealt with the other two sisters, that being Oryx, he's dead, full gone, killed him in his throne world, good to go. Savathun died, became a being of the light now, so not, I guess technically not really a threat. Though that's yeah. Like take that at face value, I guess. I don't know. And then of course Xivu Arath, where Xivu Arath is the hive god of war. She just by nature of choosing to fight or not to fight, even in peacetime, she is still gathering power, because then when war does eventually break out, it's that much more appetizing to her.
Yeah.
So by turning her by Eris turning herself into vengeance, of saying, well, now instead of fighting for war, we're fighting for vengeance. Now those tithes are being directed up a different chain, and therefore ciphering away from Xivu Arath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to touch on the whole Deck of Whispers idea, because thematically, super cool. Really, really enjoyed the Deck of Whispers. Mechanically, it's kind of whatever, but
I did like that you could shorten the deck and be like, well, I only want these
yeah,
5 cards. Like,
I only want these ones.
Kind of takes away from the whole like tarot card reading thing, but you're like forcing your own. Oh, but guardians make their own fate.
To make their own fate. Yeah.
Holy shit! I just now got that. Okay, all right.
But no, so the idea of tarot in general in our world, and why it's kind of cool to see translated into Destiny's universe, and Eris Mourn especially being one of the people interacting with it. I didn't know a ton about tarot personally until I started looking into it because of the Deck of Whispers. I just thought of it as like a form of fortune telling, essentially. And not to say it isn't that, but it's got a lot more nuance than that. It is meant to be a form of divination that symbolizes past, present, and future, and the symbols of the cards, like the meaning of the cards, are not necessarily set in stone. They're very vague and generalistic meanings, and therefore it really comes down to, and I suppose you could argue this about fortune telling in general, but it comes down to the interpretation of the reader as to what those things might mean. And so you could have two different readers with the exact same set of cards and have two completely different readings. Not necessarily different, like where one's gonna say this bad thing's gonna happen, the other one's gonna say a good thing's gonna happen, kind of thing. But just like they can be read so generalistically. I forget what most of them were, but there was one that's like, I think it's the death card or the Reaper card or something. It symbolizes not death as in like someone dying, but as in it could be the death of a venture and rebirth into something new job, new uh, hobby, new insert thing here.
Sure.
So it's a very interpretive type of thing, and it is just interesting to see the hive kind of put in that, especially involving Savathun and involving Eris, put into this deck of like it depends on the interpretations of the person viewing the card to come up with what it could mean for them, kind of thing.
Okay. I do still like the idea that like because we can manipulate the deck and we can shorten it, that we are kind of making our own fate there.
In a way, yeah.
I think that's neat.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But all right. So yeah, and Eris is very much putting herself in the pantheon in
Yep.
this verse. She's leaving no yeah, no
Now
doubts
in
there. She's like, I am along with the sisters
yeah.
in the
Well
pantheon.
well and in the deck itself, she is the harbinger
Yes.
versus like being the vengeance or war or knowledge or whatever.
Yes. And I guess like harbinger, technically speaking, or like by definition, is a person or thing that announces or signals the approach of something else.
Okay.
So as the harbinger, maybe it's like she's announcing, the downfall of the hive, or she's announcing
Oh, that
the
level of like it's left to the interpreter to
yeah.
like what is the harbinger? I see what you're saying. Okay. Yep, I'm connecting it now. Okay.
So, alrighty. So moving along to the second verse. Uh this is one written by Savathun. So a little different perspective on things. Um so this one is titled, the chapter title in the book is Imago Unfurl. The verse title is just The Witch. And it goes like this. We were the last surviving siblings. That's what this has always been about for Xivu Arath. She wanted us all to survive. She would throw everything she could at us so we could learn to survive. Didn't quite work, did it? My brother's greatest act of navigation were his metamorphoses. That was his tactic. He would change everything about himself so that he could survive this universe. Meanwhile, my sister cuts the universe apart, makes it as sharp as she, until all that's left in her is her and her love. I'm a little bit of both. No need to choose. I don't have my brother's fear or my sister's vanity. Even in this infinite adaptability, Oryx could not withstand the Guardians. So Xivu Arath wants to prove she can by being as rigid and unyielding as she has always been. No need to fix what isn't broken. Overwhelming force, tactics, and intimidation. We are who we are, and we chose our morphs carefully. I wanted life. Xivu wanted vengeance and dominion. Oryx wanted to venture out deep in thought and feed on the delicacies of truth. Well, he got what he wanted. Now Oryx knows death more intimately than any of us. No bringing him back. Poor Shiva's distraught. With all that war and ruin to hide behind, she thinks she doesn't show it. Deep down, she believes Oryx must have survived through their logic. She believes he'll be conjured back just like he conjured us. That was a long time ago. We've moved past that. Despite everything to come, I will live on, with and without them. Should I say that I miss my siblings? That I miss the times when the threats of death and short lifespan were still with us? When we piloted our needle when we dove and became what we became. No, Xivu is the sentimental one. We are not who we were. Who we were no longer exists. I sound like my brother. And that's the end of that verse.
Ooh. Yeah, this is very much her kind of musing on herself and her siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, kind of calling out Oryx like being the hive god of knowledge. Well, now he's so dead, and he's the only one that knows that death more intimately than either of us. No bringing him back. Like, yeah, he got what he wished. Like, and then of
The one
course,
final mystery.
exactly. Like that was the only mystery left in the universe was death, and now he has it. And then of course, Xivu Arath, just her want for war, like it's interesting. She calls her out too and says, she can see that. Sorry, Savathun can see that Xivu is distraught, even with all the war. Like she's getting her energy feed. She's good, but she's still like sad because she's like Xivu is very convinced that Oryx will survive. Like, oh, he died. Yeah, okay. Well, we died to him. Like calling out back to the old books of sorrow. Oryx
Mm-hmm.
literally kills both of his sisters, right? Or does he just kill um,
Both.
he
It's
does kill
both.
both of them. So he
Yep.
kills both of them, like outright. But then, like, literally conjures them back through memory, which I don't know why I'm just now putting this together right now in this exact moment. He's literally using darkness right there. He's making their forms remember themselves as a past form and using darkness to bring them back to life.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't
For
know why I
sure.
didn't connect that until this exact moment, but now I kind of like finally understand how he did it. Because that was the whole thing. Like when he killed him, like that should have been it. Like that was the whole
Right.
thing with sword logic. Like I am more powerful than you. I will kill you to become more powerful. And then they came back, and it was like, oh, well, now we're just going to kill each other over and over again. And it was like, well, how are they coming back to life? Freaking darkness. Like we now
Yeah.
understand that more intimately now than we did before with all of Witch Queen, with all of the everything in this universe has memory, and darkness helps do things with memory or with aspects of the mind rather than aspects of physicality.
Yeah, and
So
you know what? I'm pretty sure he killed them to gain power to go slay Akka,
yeah,
which then gave him a audience with,
yeah,
the being in the dark, be that we're assuming the witness,
yep,
and gave him the ability to take, which would have been kind of his first real touch of like paracausality.
yep.
So yeah, that totally lines up.
All of this is checking out now. Wow, this is great. I love these little like aha moments.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, but again, I'm 90. I'm not going to say I'm 100% sure Oryx is dead. 99% sure Oryx is dead. Uh, but yeah, like it's interesting that Xivu or Savathun rather is kind of musing on these because even she says, and again towards the end of it, we are not who we were. Who we were no longer exist. Like, and that's true for all three of them. Even though and it's more than just like they're more than the krill that they were. Like they're even more now than the hive gods they were.
Right.
Oryx now being, dead, and Savathun now being of the light.
Yeah. Yeah. So we continue on to the third chapter, which is penned by Xivu Arath, titled appropriately Battle Song. But the verse is titled The Adherent. And it kind of has this subtext of what I am, uttered by Xivu Arath, god of many shapes. And it goes like this. I am the god of silence. I slit 100 million wailing throats. I watch as their blood scatters like precious stones, their screams turn to sighs, their sighs turn to silence. I stand among the dead and listen to the absence of sound. I am the god of logic. I shiver in delight to speak the truth because speaking truth is good. I speak my brother's words, the words he cut from the worm god Akka's throat. I am the god of life. I pare dead things from truth, and in this I find life that cannot be extinguished. I hold that life, nurture it by testing it against my will, by removing the weaknesses that bring death. In this I embrace life and all its strength. I am the god of love. Any life that can withstand me will be with me at the final shape. There we will stand together. That life will know me, and I will know it, paired to our true shapes, seeing each other for what we are. I am the god of all that exists. I have endured while others have not. I am the last surviving sibling. I will stand at the final shape and be the end. I will maintain my existence when nothing else has. I will stand alone. That's the end of that verse.
So I think this is Xivu Arath kind of grasping at straws. Like she's I honestly, this is me seeing Xivu Arath as being distraught. Like she really is
Yeah.
the last survivor of her sisters. Yes, Savathun is alive. Yes, she can interact with Savathun, but Savathun is not. Savathun's not Savathun anymore.
No,
Like
not Shivu's Savathun
that's
anyway.
what I'm saying. Like she can't. I don't think that. I think when Savathun transitioned over to being a light bearer, like she lost all of her darkness, everything. She lost the whole. Obviously, she lost her worm. We've got that in cold storage back at the tower. Um, so there's no feeding going on there. There's no tithe gathering or any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she lost all of her memories. Granted, we gave those back to her. Good job, us. We suck. Um, but she doesn't have. I don't think she can command darkness at all. I think she can
No.
only command light. I still think that we, humanity, are the only things in the universe that can command both. Um, but because she no longer has any ties to darkness, she doesn't really. This is a really shitty way to say this. She doesn't really need her sisters anymore, and her sisters don't really need her. So they're. I think this is kind of like two parts. Like each side is just kind of accepting that the other side is, and I'm going to put this in quotations, dead. Um, but yeah, it's kind of sad, honestly, to see Xivu Arath like going through. Now, some of these kind of make sense. Like, I am the god of silence. Yeah, when everything's dead, of course there's no sound. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're kind of, I guess I'm the god of logic. Um, uh, no, I'm just gonna say no on that one. I'm the god of life. Okay, I could kind of see that since you are the god of war. Like, yes, things are dying, so you are kind of in command of life, um, but not necessarily like bringing life. Kind of like what we were saying with the tarot cards. Like, this is kind of like an interpretation
Yeah.
of like what she thinks she is. Um, the I'm the god of love. Now you're just being crazy. I get that you love your sisters and like you are you're you're the last one, so of course you must be the most loving of the three because you followed everything through to the end. Yeah, I'm just gonna call BS here. You're just grasping as far as 100%. Then the last one. Well, if I'm the god of these, I've got to be the god of everything. Like I decide who lives and dies. Like I am existence. Like no, now you're just being crazy, Zebu.
Yeah, honestly, what this reads like to me is a little bit of like a temper tantrum.
Yes.
Uh, like Oryx, their favorite sibling, is no more.
Yep.
And their other sibling is like, I'm too cool for you. I don't need.
Yeah.
Go away. And so this is little Xivu having like a mini meltdown
Yeah.
and be like, you can't say that you're too good for me. I'm too good for you. Look at all these things that I am.
I'm not just the god of war. I'm the god of silence. I'm the god of logic. I'm the god of life. I'm the god of love. I'm the god of everything. Screw it. I'm making my own rules in this game.
Kinda, yeah.
Is that what it is? Is it's the one kid they've created their own like game that they're playing, and the one's like, "Well, I'm touching the desk, so that's home base," and the other kid's like, "Nuh-uh, you don't have your foot in the air." And so that's Xivu saying like,
Just
"Nuh-uh, I'm the
making up
god of
rules.
everything." Exactly,
Yeah.
making up rules as they go along.
Yeah, I think so. And in a less comical standpoint, I think this is Shivu grasping at straws. This is her having a tantrum because she's trying desperately not to acknowledge the fact that she was probably wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think that's big too, because again, Savathun, I think realized that really, really quickly
Yeah,
after they made the. I mean, we're talking way back. We're talking back in the depths of Fundament when they first made the pact with the worms and they became the Hive. Savathun realized really quickly this is wrong, and so she has spent literally billions of years planning some way to get out of it. And she's had contingencies on top of contingencies, but I think the other two possibly might have just accepted it. Specifically, Xivu Arath accepted it 100%. And like what you're saying, she's just having a
yeah.
temper tantrum here because she doesn't want to admit that she's wrong. Oryx, I think to a point, I think at some point in
Oryx
time, because
questioned.
I was going to say, I remember in the Books of Sorrow that Oryx questioned it. Like he was like, "Am I really doing the right thing?" So I don't know that he fully accepted that he was doing the right thing. I mean, to question it just straight up says, like, of course he didn't fully accept it, but I don't
Yeah,
think he fully rejected it the way
no,
that Xivu did, or the way that Savathun did. So yeah,
no. He was kind of like, I think given more time, he may have come around to Savathun's
I think you're right.
line of thinking.
I think you're right.
But it just like at the time that we interacted with him, he had those doubts were there, but he wasn't, he was still very much on the path he was on.
Yep.
And yeah, Xivu just never had any doubts. She was very much like, this is what we were told, and this is like, again, what her favorite sibling, who I truly think Oryx was the role model for Xivu in a weird way.
100%. 100%.
Uh, she's like, that's what Big Brother did. That's what I have to like. That's what I need to do because
Yep.
that's what they did, kind of thing. And they can't be wrong. It's just it's a very interesting like sibling dynamic that evolves with these three.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
So yeah, that brings us to the next chapter, number 4, which is penned now by Eris Mourn once again. This chapter is titled Evocate Desire, but the verse, which is verse 4, is titled The Harbinger. And this would presumably in game be shortly after Eris's first full like hive transformation, because she references that in the opening lines here. But this one goes like this. My vile transformation is complete. What was foretold, what was feared, is now true. Eris Mourn has given in to the hive's endless hunger. She has taken up the mantle of a hive queen and leads vast armies of acolytes into war. Inevitable, inimitable. Who else but her? Who else? What else but this? Ikora believes my transformation was not necessary. It was. I hear whispers, but when do I not? They have been with me since the Hellmouth. This is what I am. It cannot be refuted or denied. This is the shape I have chosen for myself, my morph, the Harbinger. Ikora believes I will martyr myself, but what martyr walked towards oblivion with a knife in hand? I will not go so serenely. In my morph, I am unafraid. In my morph, I wield fear, that earliest of fears, fear of devourment. Since we ourselves were prey, we have felt terror at the gaping maw, at the hunger gazing at us with delight. I have stared that hunger in the face. I have endured it for too long. Now I will be the predator. I will devour. I will instill that first fear. I hunger, but that hunger has always strained against the limitations of my lightless body. But here, in the Witch Queen's endless hypogeum, that hunger has bloomed. This part of me has erupted from my body as from the earth, like one of those obscene carnivorous corpse flowers, dark cores swallowing sunlight, plush petals open to death. Ridiculous. Who would compare hunger to a flower? I do not passively wait for my prey. No, no, it is a worm. A worm I have a desperate urge to feed. It can be nothing else. And that's the end of that verse.
So I love her transformation in game. Like she real like I think that that version of Eris, the hive god of vengeance, is the most truest form of Eris we've ever seen. And throughout this whole reading here, like it's just her at like I know she is afraid a little bit, but I think it's such a little amount of fear that she's like, I know this has to happen, and so
Mm-hmm.
I will wield that fear as a weapon. Like I will become fear itself. I will become the greatest of fear. I will literally devour everything. So yeah, it I again I absolutely adore Eris in this form, and she is a badass. And there's nothing else to say about that.
Yeah, I do think it's funny that she's like, she's taken up the mantle of a hive queen and last led armies of acolytes into war. Like, hey, that's me. Uh,
Yay! I'll be your acolyte.
yeah, it's kind of funny to see hive terminology applied to guardians in that way. Um,
Well, I guess that's the interesting thing too. Is like hive terminology doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a thrall or an acolyte or whatever. Like
right.
it's just whatever is feeding you.
Yeah.
So like they just have to use the term acolyte, thrall, knight, wizard, all that stuff. But like, yeah, we're absolutely Eris's personal acolyte.
Yeah. I find it interesting that so Eris does not have a worm.
Right.
As far as we know, she does not have a worm inside her that she needs to feed like a normal hive does. But it's interesting that when she's in this form, she hungers like she needs to feed one.
So I was going to ask about that too. I remember the artifact for that season. Wasn't there a worm in the artifact on the end of the
If
staff?
Yeah, if I recall correctly, there was a worm in like the crystal that
Yeah.
was at the head of the staff.
Because when she started the whole ritual, there was like a whole like pile of worms, and she just like zoop, they're all dead now.
Yeah.
To like create this high version of herself, this true version of herself. Um, but yeah, I'm wondering if it's got to be right. Like it's got to be those worms that are causing her to hunger the way that a worm would cause one to hunger.
Yeah, and that would make sense, I suppose, if maybe the worm she's feeding is external,
Sure.
uh, via that staff, or I'm not sure exactly how it interacts, but it's just interesting that like even a non-wormed uh hive adjacent being still has that same like
Yep.
need to feed.
Yep.
So it might just be it's so ingrained in like the hive genetics at this point that is an instinct that's always there.
That's what I'm thinking.
But so we continue on to chapter 5, still with Eris Mourn as the author. uh so this one is the chapter title is Mimesis, which is a representation or imitation of the real world in art or literature. Um, so kind of like art imitates life kind of thing.
And I
I
like how you already had a description for that because you knew I was going to ask it.
I've got a few of these that I've got pulled up already. Uh, but the verse is titled Blades. So this is verse 5. Um, and it goes like this. What is the nature of war? Ritual. What is the nature of ritual? Fascination. Imitation shapes desire, and Xivu Arath has become its great mediator. She compels those she wars against to war against her, and the object over which they war is existence itself. She takes up her blade, and we take up ours. Xivu Arath cuts at us, and so do we cut at her. We bleed together, mirrored in our pain and violence. Savathun looked at us through a veil, so that we would not see her. Xivu Arath looks at us through a dark mirror, and she sees only herself. This is her design, her ultimate mechanism of desire. She would make us into her image. She would cut the entire universe into her image, so that she is the only thing left at the end of all things. Vain and lonely. That is Xivu Arath, bereft of her siblings. The sword logic is predicated on such imitation. To return Xivu Arath's violence is to embrace it and its beautiful thesis. We are forced to react again and again as she makes her advance. We are forced to desire existence at any cost, just as she does. Fated, inevitable? No, an ontological trap. The war mind knew this, as he could know her the most intimately out of all of us. His escalation did nothing but mirror her endlessly. His self-sacrifice put an end to that font of violence. It was a frustration in her logic that he did so, as Xivu Arath recognizes no sacrifice that does not end in a scream. But self-sacrifice could not put an end to her war march. Only doubt can do so. And in Xivu Arath's mournful solipsism, she will be left with nothing but that. And that's the end of that verse.
So again, very much calling out Xivu Arath. The one line I really like in this is vain and lonely. That is Xivu Arath bereft of her siblings.
Yeah.
Like without her sisters, she is nothing. She is so convinced that she is the greatest amongst them. That she will see this thing all the way through. That the worms weren't a trap. They weren't. It wasn't. They were fated to be. Like they had to have been that way. But then that idea of like the reason because of that is because sword logic is like sword logic wants her to think that way. Like, oh, well, they died, so I have to be the strongest
Right.
because they are dead and they were supposed to die. Sword logic says if something has died, then it was supposed to die. And the things that exist because they are supposed to exist. It's all supposed to come down to the final shape, the last being of all. And so, um, for her to think that means that not only does any type of violence or anything like that help feed it, we as the opposite force against her have to do something about it. Like if we want to, like what they're saying there, we're forced to desire existence at any cost, just as she does, to predicate the sword logic to say, well, if I want to exist, I have to be the reason to exist. I have to end the thing on the other side, which then that whole logic there just feeds war, like feeds Xivu Arath. So she's like, great, this is perfect, and then Eris calls it out exactly as it is, an ontological trap. One is feeding the other side because the other side wants to exist more than the first side, and it just continues on into a circle onto itself.
Yeah, it is such an interesting, like, outside of what Rasputin did, self-sacrifice. There's no way not to feed into Shivu's tithes.
Right.
So like it is, and we can't all just be like, well, we're gonna self-sacrifice and not fight you, because that still kind of wins the battle for her.
That's what I'm saying. Now she just moves on to the next solar system. It's like, all right, well, conquer that one. Sweet. Next.
Yeah. So it is so incredibly ingenious for Eris to to capture the tithes that would go to Xivu Arath before they get to her,
Yep.
by taking on this persona of vengeance, of like violence enacted for the sake of vengeance is different enough from war, just like pure survival, like fighting for survival, that she takes those ties rather than Xivu. So a very interesting logic problem amongst all of the like shooting guns.
Yeah. But I think that's like, again, I think that helps lend this to the Books of Sorrow. They're trying to present these logic problems in a way of like, okay, well, according to scripture, this is how we solve the logic problem. So to be able to like define it here, now we can start creating some type of solution for it.
Yeah. All right. So we move on then to, interestingly enough, we had 2 chapters from Eris, and now we're going straight into Xivu, which begs the question: was the previous chapter Eris, or was that Savathun pretending to be Eris?
Porque no los dos.
Right. Like it could read either way. Like if it was Savathun, it would keep with the previous pattern. But maybe it was Eris.
Savathun, Xivu.
Right. No. So just a little like maybe moment.
See, but that's the thing though. Like at this point in time, Savathun's already given over to the light. So like it wouldn't help feed her any. But is she just that much of a dick that she would just keep doing it? Like that's all she's known to do for the last billion years. So she's just like, why not?
I mean, old habits die hard.
That's. I mean, you're not wrong.
Uh, but so now we get to chapter 6, which
This one has a name on it. Myth, you're gonna have to go into full detail on this one.
yes. So the name on this one is written in Greek lettering. The pronunciation, I think, apologies in advance for murdering this, I'm sure, uh, is Catalophyromaea, which apparently is in reference to a musical fragment from the first stanza of a story called Orestes, which was penned by Euripides.
I
And
hope you got all those pronunciations correct.
I hope so too. It roughly translates into "I cry and lament so much."
Oh,
I
that's sad.
the verse title for this, so that's the chapter title. The verse title is Lacuna, and uh, in interesting fashion, that is the beginning of a song, of a musical fragment. And Xivu is singing, question mark,
I want to hear
in
you
this.
sing this entire entry as Xivu Arath. I'm
That's
ready
not
for it.
happening.
I
That
always
is
say I'm
not
going to be the
happening.
first one to sing. Myth is going to be the first one to sing.
There will be no tune carried, thank you. But so there's a couple of things happening here just with the titles alone. So the chapter title meaning like I'm lamenting a loss, presumably. The verse title lacuna meaning an empty space or void. And then kind of subtitled is My Navigation, sung by Xivu Arath, faithful sister to Oryx. So before we even get into the actual like verse of the song, this is all about her being sad that Oryx is gone, essentially.
Yeah.
And she's claiming I'm the faithful sister. I'm the one that stood by your ideals even after you were no longer here. My navigation, Oryx was the navigator. Like it's just there's so many little interplays. Now before we get to the song from Xivu that's written in the lore card, I want to look at that first stanza of the Catalophyromaea, because it's kind of you could kind of skew it towards the hive, honestly.
Okay.
Um
Are we taking this
so
idea of the deck of whispers and we're trying to like we're skewing things in certain directions here?
I mean maybe. But so
I'm down with it.
I'll read this and you can see what you think. So the first kind of stanza of this translates, again, I'm sure roughly, into I cry, your mother's blood that drives you mad. Great happiness in mortals never lasting. But like a sail of a swift ship, which a god shook up and plunged it with terrible troubles into the greedy and deadly waves of the sea.
Oh.
So
Oh my.
there's a couple correlations if we really want to like spin foil hat here. There's a couple correlations that they may have been aiming at. Your mother's blood that drives you mad, great happiness in mortals never lasting. Mother's blood that drives you mad could maybe be the worm familiar from Fundament.
Sure.
But that and the next line, great happiness in mortals never lasting, definitely could be reference to the fact that the Krill only lived for 4 years.
10, I think it was, wasn't it?
Was it 10 years? I think maybe they were 4 years old when they did
Yep.
all their stuff. But very, very short lifespans. Very, very short. So like almost cursing the fact they were born as krill because they're destined to have a short lifespan, and no amount of happiness will ever outlast that lifespan. Like a sail of a swift ship, which God shook up and plunged with terrible troubles into the greedy and deadly waves of the sea. If you know the story of the Books of Sorrow, you know that the sisters got on a ship called the Needle and literally dove to the bottom of Fundament's ocean to find the worms.
And great sorrow.
And great sorrow. So, really interesting how you could, if you wanted to, draw some correlations between the Genesis story of the hive and this old Greek poem.
I like it. Though I'm not gonna lie, I was fully expecting you to read that in Grecian.
No.
Nope.
I can pronounce poorly one word.
Nope.
I'm not doing no. But so with that, with the original, words in mind, Xivu Arath's version, titled Lacuna, is this. The sky gave our sisters strength from false shapes. She fell to what felled you, lonely navigator. This is their lie. Their companionship is strength. This is our truth. Their complacency decays existence. Their dead rise when they deserve to die. They will not meet our truth with truth. Thus they do not deserve it. They are not real. You were real. You were to last forever. Our undying creation. I would die again to give you strength. I would cut my wound so that you may step through. You will not rise by false shapes, but with our unconditional victory. She who has been scoured of the sky now brings forth her brood. They have taken up your weapon, which is all that you are, and she will conjure you back with her understanding. And that's the end of the verse.
Ooh. I was really hoping you'd sing this one too.
So I don't even really know what kind of tune to put to this.
That's what someone's going to. Like the fact that somebody did the kitsune for the two-tailed fox, somebody's got to have this with some auto-tune on it or something. Yeah, so this is very much singing the story of what's happening. Sky gave our sister strength from false shapes, saying, okay, well, Savathun has the light now. She fell to what felled you. She died to guardians. Cool. Calling that out as a lie and then saying like the actual truth is their complacency decays existence. Basically saying that the light bearers, us the guardians, or anyone who is on the side of the sky, following through with that doesn't really follow the ideas of existence. That if it was supposed to die, then that was it. It was supposed to die. And so when they say when she says their dead rise when they deserve to die, that's exactly what she's telling there. And since they being the guardians aren't following that logic, well then they don't deserve it. So they can't be real. Like they're not even they don't follow any type of logic that should exist.
Right.
And then of course calling out her brother Oryx is, you're real. You were supposed to last forever. Like you were everything. I mean, she did it several times. I would die again to give you strength. I would cut my wounds so that you may step through. Like literally saying, I would bring you back into existence if I could.
Yeah.
But then also following up with, you will not rise by false shapes. So I think she's calling out Savathun directly because if you remember in the Ghost of the Deep dungeon, which came out before this, the season before this one, Savathun had sent an agent to the bottom of Titan with a ghost and was going to res Oryx with a ghost and use the light to bring him back and use necromancy. And it's like Xivu was like, you can't do that. That's heresy. That's bullshit. You cannot do that. And then of course calling, she who has been scoured of the sky now brings forth her brood. I think that one is in reference to Eris Mourn. So being scoured of the
Yes.
sky, like the light has left her, bringing forth her brood, us.
Yep.
They've taken up your weapon, which is all that you have. That being the sword logic, because that's the only thing that Eris could think of to use to defeat Xivu Arath. But then the last line, she will conjure you back with her understanding. Is Xivu saying that Eris, like by using sword logic, now just will kind of accidentally bring Oryx back?
Potentially. I'm also wondering if Xivu, they have taken up your weapon, which is all that you are, 100% could be sword logic. It might have a double meaning with the literal touch of malice.
Oh, that's right.
In which case, like, that was still a way for Oryx to exist, was
Right.
via touch of malice. So now the whole she will conjure you back with her understanding bit, that might just be Xivu going, okay, Oryx brought me back by understanding war so
Right.
much that like he remembered me into existence in a way.
Right.
And maybe she's thinking that because based on the dialogues that happened during Season of the Witch after Eris's transformation, Xivu like fully addresses her as a sister.
Oh
So
shit.
maybe Xivu is of the mindset of like
We now have a
she
fourth sister. That understands sword logic so
yeah.
intimately that she could remember Oryx back into creation. Interesting.
Now clearly Eris has no reason to want
Right.
to do that, but
Yeah.
Xivu is also a little unhinged. So
Only a little though.
only a little. But yeah, so that would be my initial guess, is that that's how she's interpreting what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So that brings us to verse and chapter 7, which is also by Xivu Arath. So I guess that throws the pattern out the window. The chapter is
I'm
titled.
still gonna follow that idea that like, what if Savathun? Because because that would be some fucky shit that she would do.
It would be. It would be. Um, this is penned by Xivu Arath. The chapter is titled Deathless. The verse is titled Liminal. Liminal being occupying a position like on a boundary or threshold. So being kind of between two places at once. The subtitle says "My Throne, Carved to Endure" by Xivu Arath, God of Love.
Well, she's really like she's losing her mind at this point.
It is interesting to think that she is literally carved this somewhere in her throne world so that like the words continue.
Yeah.
Which
Well, and
she
the
no longer
idea
has access to now.
well, now, but not at the time of this
Right, not at
verse
the time
writing,
that
right?
she was doing this. Yeah.
So the interesting thing here is because it's in her throne world, it should literally like that's the whole like ayat thing, right? Like because this is pinned there, it has to exist that way because it exists, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, not to say that she's like writing what will happen in the future. She's not literally dictating the future, but she's trying to impress upon the world her version of how things are meant to be.
Is this kind of like a way to like keep herself alive, like in case of like, do you think she's scared at this at the time of this writing? Do you think she was scared enough of what Eris was doing that like even Xivu had to come up with a backup plan?
I don't think that, because what she actually writes um isn't her trying to like bring herself back or anything. I think I think in a lot of ways that like this is Shivu struggling again, like refusing to come to terms with the idea that things are not going to go her way. So she's trying
Oh,
to
okay.
defy that by
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, this is the way things are, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm following.
But so verse 7 goes like this. My court is war, and you will find me there. I am war, and my throne is deathless. Come, cut the outer curtain of my fortress, and it will open its new eye in a bloodless laceration. Cut further to see inside its walls, the yellow fat, the purple viscera, the teeming rust-cut capillaries. These are the colors of war. These are the colors of my court. My gates open to the most life. The swollen fountains run with blood and burst with arterial spray. The paths are paved with the small white teeth. They gnash beneath each footfall, their roots raw and alive. Look, I have raised cathedrals made of flesh. When a breeze caresses them, they blush and contract, fine hairs sensing the change. They are worshipped with bare touch. My throne shudders with joy. The halls of my palace are echoing throats slick and filled with breath. Its windows are glazed with skin, opalescent and alive, latticed with blue-black veins. The seats of my throne are fashioned with living bones. Break them, and you will see their raw red marrow. Break them, and the wet pith will writhe. Two are knotted with scars, broken and reformed. Broken and reformed. Look out from the terrace and see the worlds we will devour to sustain us. It is a mouth yawning black and wide and hungering. It is open in screams of base need. My court is love, and you will meet me there. And that's the end of that verse.
Well, that's going to give me nightmares. Holy shit. Okay, this is a fucked up place, man. I'm not even going to... What the hell?
Maybe it's kind of nice that we just kind of cut her throne world off and don't have to go there.
What the hell, Myth? This is straight up. This is a. I'm okay. I'm a little freaked out. I'm not gonna lie right now. What the hell?
What
the hell? It's something. I don't even know where to start with it. The swollen fountain run with blood and burst with arterial spray. The paths are paved with small white teeth. They gnash beneath each footfall. Their roots are raw and alive. What the hell? I've raised cathedrals of flesh. What the hell?
Yeah, honestly, you know what it reminds me of, or it gives me the vibe of, just trying to imagine, is very like H.R. Geiger.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very like organic, just like organic landscape of horrific things.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the most fucked up place I've ever read about in my life, man. What is... Its windows are glazed with skin, opalescent and alive, latticed with blue-black vein. What the hell?
Yeah.
What the hell, Myth? The Throne of Bones was honestly like the most like...
That was like, okay, this is
like,
fine.
Acceptable thing. I was just like, okay, cool, but fine, I'll accept this. But like,
Yeah.
I don't like her throne world, and I'm glad we never have to see it.
Yeah, don't want to go there. Don't want to go there. And
But
I'm
as
pretty
far
sure
as
we couldn't unless Destiny got an M rating.
you are not wrong. But as far as like what this whole thing is about, like she's just trying to like solidify this into existence is what it seems like. Like she's trying to do exactly what Oryx did, where like if she can write this thing in such a way that imprints memory onto this place, which by the way, with how fucked up this is definitely imprinted a memory on me.
Yeah.
To where even if she dies, even if she falls, like this will endure. This place will exist because of the memory of it. And so I, I don't know. It on one hand, this is brilliant. On the other hand, this is straight madness. Like just the idea of trying to like carve this into her own throne world to say, well, as long as I write this down, like now it has to exist on. Now it will prevail on. Like I don't know, man. This is kind of brilliant.
It is in that sense. And actually, what the last line, um, look out from the terrace and see the worlds we will devour to sustain us. It is a mouth yawning black and wide and hungering. It is open and screams of base need. My court is love, and you will meet me there. And then there were some other references to like they are worshipped with bare touch and will shudder with joy and all of that. So it's this weird mix of like grotesque violence with also grotesque like ecstasy.
Yeah.
Uh
Yeah.
Honestly,
Well, and the whole thing is she's declaring herself as the god of love.
right. What it brings to mind for me, and I don't necessarily know why my brain is making this correlation, but what it makes me think of is the final scenes of the Berserk movies for anyone that
Oh
has seen
shit.
those.
That's
Very
that's good.
similar, like
That's good.
very similar wavelength, I
I like
think.
it. I can see the connection. I like it.
So if you know, you know. I'm
Yeah,
not going to spoil it for
that's where
those that
I'm
don't.
at on that one. Yeah. But yeah, no, I do
But
like that
yeah,
idea of like this is kind of brilliance. It if she is since she is declaring herself as the god of love and then like cementing this into the memory of anyone who reads it, now it has to be able to exist according to the logic that Oryx used to bring her back of just remembering war so intimately that Xivu Arath came back into existence.
yeah. I think she is trying, without admitting it, she is trying so desperately to either bring Oryx back to like be her beacon, give
Yeah,
her direction again.
be the navigator, right?
Um, right. And at the same time to like, because she says it multiple times, like, I will be the last thing at the end of the universe. I will survive the final shape. I'm like, newsflash.
Well,
No,
and
no, you won't.
and to her, that it has to be right because she's the last surviving sister.
Right. And as far as she's concerned, like, they are
They're
it.
dead.
Like,
Yeah, like that's she's destined to be the end of the universe.
you know, in the same way that Callus thought he was. And we saw how that
Exactly.
went.
Yeah. Yeah. Ahamkara has. Oh man, what if we find an Ahamkara bone in all this hive stuff?
I mean,
This is some bullshit myth.
it's not to say
What
one
if the
won't show up.
Leviathan was just an Ahamkara? This is some bullshit myth.
I
Destiny
don't think the
Universe.
Leviathan was an Aham. We know the Leviathan was not an Ahamkara.
Yes, but what if? No.
But what if?
It's just there's so many times that Ahamkara bones have come into play that it's just
Oh,
like
they have. They absolutely have.
the destiny of universe literally runs off of Ahamkara bones and Xivu and Savathun bullshit is what it is.
Uh, so we now move on to an entry from Savathun, who like has some commentary on the state that Xivu Arath is in at this point. Um, so we are on chapter 8 of Sororicide, which is titled Swords and Lanterns. And the verse itself is titled Ascension. And it goes like this. My sorry, sad, inculcated sister. She thinks she's as honest as a knife's edge just because she never speaks a lie aloud. But she's prone to contradiction, at least since our beloved brother fell. She could never quite understand it. Someone as mighty as Oryx brought down by liars, his bloodline destroyed, his corpse left to desiccate in Saturn's orbit. Xivu Arath actually believed that dreadnought of his was unassailable. But Oryx knew that he had limits. More than once he took the power of our deaths to defeat something stronger than himself. She's just bitter she wasn't there to die for him again. She says she's the god of death, but I've seen her throne. It's a mausoleum for life, with all of the close, cloying comfort of a birthing room, wet and raw and filled with disgusting effluvia. I imagine it reminds her of our gardens so long ago and all the things that grew there. She really shouldn't be so nostalgic. There was a game we played when we were young. Swords and lanterns. Sathona held the lantern, while Xivu held the sword. Sathona would search for her hidden sister, and Xivu would avoid the lantern's light. If Xivu touched Sathona with her sword, she would win. If Sathona found Xivu with her lantern, she would win. Sathona devised the rules, but Xivu would let her sister find her. I still give her presents, too, of course. I gave her Torbatul, my gift to my last surviving sibling. She gobbled it up so greedily. She didn't even consider how it proved her precious logic false. What kind of thing is a gift? The deep doesn't give gifts, neither does logic. But we're sisters. I thought I'd be nice and share. Xivu was too busy to notice that little contradiction. She never even thanked me. What did she say as soon as she set foot on Torbatul? For as long as you have worshipped war, you have worshipped me, Ayat, Ayat. That was Torbatul. I know a joke in a dead language. Ayat. And that's the end of that verse.
Ooh, I think she just called her sister out.
Pretty much.
I like that. Like that's that little ending there. I see you. But yeah, no,
Yes.
she's definitely like what you're saying. Like Savathun is definitely, um, I don't know. I can't really tell if she's sad for her sister or if she's just like kind of like you poor dumb idiot. Like
I think it's a little more that one.
that
Um,
seems more what it's about. Like this whole thing screams like, okay, cool. You're so convinced that you're right that you can't even see how dumb you are. Like, what is wrong with you? Whatever, it's fine. You're gonna lose anyway. It doesn't matter. Like that to me is the way that Savathun is kind of writing this. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and interestingly enough, when Savathun's talking about this game that they played, she addresses Sathona in the third person
Yeah.
as if Sathona is a different
Yeah.
person. Which I mean, I guess maybe Savathun is so far removed from what Sathona was at this point that
Well,
she is.
if you think back to one of the earlier verses that we read tonight, where she says, you know, we are no longer that. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't exist anymore. So to me, for her address, like she's fully accepted. Savathun is fully accepted that Sathona was a different being altogether. Like it.
Yeah.
Yes, she transformed into Savathun, but in Savathun's mind, that is truly a different thing, and she can never go back to that.
Yeah, and Xivu is almost like, by comparison, is desperately holding on to that past
Yeah.
as like her anchor of sorts.
Yep.
And in an interesting way, Savathun, is like, she says she's the god of death, but I've seen her throne, which we unfortunately just
Blech.
heard the description of.
Blech.
But
Nope.
Savathun points out, like, it's a mausoleum to life. Like,
Yeah.
everything in it, as grotesque as it is living.
Is living. Yeah.
And it like, there's not a dead thing there other than the bones that make the throne.
But even the bones are alive. Like she says, if you break it, you'll see the red marrow inside. Like
Right, yeah.
everything in there is still kind of teeming with life.
So for as much as she's about like death and killing and the ending of life, she can't let it go.
No.
Especially when you consider throne worlds are a reflection of the inner consciousness of the being that made them.
Yep.
So it is an interesting.
I do also
point.
like their little game there, like swords and lanterns, like swords
Yeah.
being sword logic, lanterns being the light. And it's like, well, if the light can expose the sword, then the light wins. If the sword can kill the light without being seen, then the sword wins. Like very, very, obvious between light and dark there.
Yep. So
I do have a question about the
interesting,
end there, though. Like
yeah,
when she called, she says, I gave her tour bottle and she never even thanked me. She, oh yeah, cool, I ought, whatever. What's that last part? I know a joke in a dead language, and then her joke that final word there. What is that actual? What's the actual meaning behind that?
yes. So this is kind of cool. So we know the hive, when they're stating something, they say ayat, roughly meaning, I have said it, therefore, or roughly meaning like it is fated to happen. It is destined that this thing will happen. These words I just said are true because they're destined to be true. Whereas I bought, with the B in the middle, means that events happen because I have imposed my will to make it true.
Interesting.
So the distinction being that this is the way it was always supposed to be, being ayat, and this is the way I made it be, is ibat.
Interesting. The dead language being Latin, of course.
Yes, yeah.
Which I think is a joke in on itself. Thanks, Savathun.
So yeah, it's like Savathun is saying, you got Torbotle because I willed it to be so, not because you were destined to have it.
Yeah. Like okay, I'm seeing that now. Xivu Arath says, "For as long as you have worshipped war, you've worshipped me." Meaning like, oh well, I took Torbotle because I was destined to take Torbotle, not even knowing that Savathun like basically handed it to her on a silver platter and was like, "Here's Torbotle," and so she's like, "No, I gave you that. Like, you don't even see that your logic is flawed." Oh my god, that's kind of like a betrayal too. Like,
In a lot of ways.
I don't know.
It's a backstab and a gift at the same time. It's like, by the act of giving you this, I'm proving everything you believe in is wrong.
The last billion years of your life was shit and sucks to suck. Like, well then. Well played, Savathun. Well played.
Yeah. So the next chapter is penned by Xivu Arath, chapter 9. This one the chapter is titled, and again, this is a Greek name. I'm sure I'm going to get it wrong. Antigone. Antigone drowns. And this is in reference to a Theban princess who is a character in a whole bunch of different like Greek tragedies. Um, Oedipus, I think, is the main one that most people would know her from. She's the daughter of Oedipus, who is the king of Thebes. Um,
That one I do know.
yeah, that's one that most people are familiar with in one way or another. Uh, but so this is like the drowning of this princess is the title of the chapter, and I'm wondering if Xivu is like equating that if she's the princess, quote unquote, and like
Ooh.
she's drowning in sorrow because the verse is titled Lament.
Ooh.
Um and the subtitles are Xivu's Mourning, sung by Xivu Arath, sister to a dead king. So this seems to be her still in mourning over Oryx.
I mean, it's been a few years, Xivu. He's dead. You got to deal with this.
I mean, from what we've seen in the previous entries, like she's not good at letting this go.
Well, but I guess to be fair, when you followed a logic for 1 billion years,
That's true.
like
Yeah.
3 years is nothing.
Yeah. No, that's a
Like,
very good point. It's really hard for us to wrap our minds around what an existence of that length would be like.
right. So that's where, like, okay, so I guess the grieving process for them, like being 7 or 8 years, probably wouldn't be unheard of. Like,
Yeah. And that's not to say to be to reel it into to real world. That's not to say people ever really stop grieving in some
right.
cases. Like there's plenty of people that lose those that are close to them, that like it's it's a constant thing. Hopefully it gets more manageable, but it doesn't necessarily go away.
I can attest to
Um
this.
so maybe Shiva's experiencing something similar there, and
Sure.
you know and like you said, 3 years to a being that lives billions is the blink of an eye.
Right.
So but this one is very short. Again, titled Lament, is Shivu's mourning over Oryx, and it goes like this. Grief. There is no grief. I will not grieve. Fear. There is no fear. We do not fear. Pity. There is no pity. There is nothing to pity. Grave. He will have no grave. We do not dig graves. Rot. He rots beneath the waves. And that's all there is to that verse.
I feel like this would be like a metal song, right? Like, grave, there is no grave. Like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. This is
Yeah,
definitely
I could see that. I could see that.
I think Ziva's a death metal fan. She and I could rock out every once in a while. I like it. Yeah, no, very short here. Like, obviously, you know, grief, fear, pity, grave. None of these things exist because sword logic says we shouldn't give in to those feelings.
Right.
Even the grave, like we shouldn't even dig a grave. Like that thing was meant to die. And then of course he rots beneath the waves, just telling us where Oryx is.
Right.
Like, duh. So yeah, very very straightforward here.
Yeah, and um as much as sword logic dictates that like these are not feelings to have in the death of anything, even Oryx, I think like this is also her acknowledging that she is having those emotions
Yep.
by like she's rejecting them, but she's also writing down that she's rejecting them,
Therefore
which by
acknowledging them
nature
that they
means that
exist.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
So it
specifically writing them down in the books of sorrow. Like,
yes, yep.
Yeah.
Oh. Um but yeah, so real short one again, just like Savathun's real or Xivu is real messed up about
Yeah.
Oryx's death still.
Oh yeah. Well, and the other thing too that I don't know why I didn't really realize it till now. Each one of these verses is a card in the deck.
Oh,
I don't know if you caught that either.
I totally didn't click, but you're
Every
absolutely right.
single one of these verses is a card in the deck. So not only are these verses being written down in the books of sorrows, they are physically manifest in the deck of whispers.
And it being a modeled on a fortune telling deck, Eris told us at the beginning of this that like the deck of whispers is unveiling the beings
As
that it is
yeah,
about.
yeah,
So yeah, it's really cutting to kind of
the
the
truth.
core thoughts and feelings of these three.
I like it. I like it a lot.
So that brings us to chapter 10, which is back with Eris. This one is titled "The Augur Casts Her Bones." Um, I believe this is in reference to casting bones is another form of like fortune telling.
Yep.
They would have carved runes carved into the bones, and you would roll them essentially, and different rune combinations would mean different things. But the
That's where the whole
verse,
like throwing bones, like rolling dice came from, I
yep,
believe.
yep. But the verse 10 is titled "The Lie," and it goes like this. It is a dire error to see Savathun's predictions as truths divined from some inner foresight. She did not prophesize. What we are attempting here was just one possibility in an infinite collection of possibilities, and a choice we made in an infinite collection of choices. She could not have anticipated them all. She could only cast her bones in the space between certainty and augury and watch them fall. It is odd to speak of her in the past tense. Even in death, she is here with us, pulling at our strings, howling with laughter at our failings as she did years ago. But now our failings will be her sister's triumph and Savathun's lasting death. No, the Witch Queen never dealt in fate. In this, we share her understanding of the universe. Every movement is a result of a meticulous application of desire. This path was carefully constructed, and we were predictable enough to place our footsteps into the imprints she made for us. It is a truth dressed as a lie, so that we may overlook it. But that is not fate. Fate is the purview of Xivu Arath's childish logic. The dead were destined for death, and the fall of her sword is inevitable. We are not as easily fooled as she. That logic is a lie dressed as a truth, so that we may waste our time with it. No, I am not here because of fate. I am here because of will and machination. But if neither are my own, is that any more desirable? No matter, I will take control. I possess that power. I will cast my bones as the Witch Queen did between certainty and augury. I will see Xivu Arath's worm devour her. She will be struck down by her own bargain and fall like lightning. I will see Savathun undone by my own trickery. She will behold me as I am and know that I am her ruin. This is the path I lay for them, and they will follow it. Ayat. And that's the end of that verse.
So Eris is saying something that kind of leading back to the truth to power entry, the one about guardians make their own fate. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
This is a known. But what if I can if I know the choices that a given guardian's going to make and can lay out what seem to be choices in front of them, knowing with again, it can't be 100% knowledge. Eris even says so here. Like, Witch Queen never dealt in fate. Like, that's not what it is. She can't predict the future any more than we can. But if she can create that path to walk, if she can manipulate that enough that she knows with a high probability of success what the outcome is going to be of each choice, then of course it's going to look like she predicted all of this. She knew all of this was going to happen. But it's Eris is even calling her out for that. Like, well, we were just dumb enough to follow it. Like, we knew that the path was carefully constructed. We just we can't help our own nature. Like, we are going to end up following those imprints that were laid out literally, footstep for footstep for us to make, and therefore proving Savathun right. But yeah, it's and again, then she calls out later on, we're not as foolish as fate is the purview of Xivu Arath's childish logic. Like, everything was designed for death. So when it dies, that's it. Like, and the fall of her sword is inevitable, being like, well, sword logic has to exist because dead things die. Like, once they're dead, they shouldn't have existed in the first place, and this is just the world's or the universe's way of slowly leading to that final shape type idea. But then calling us out, saying, well, we're not as foolish as Xivu Arath is. Even that logic is a lie dressed as truth, because the idea that the dead thing has died and your sword caused it. Okay, from one point of view, and again, kind of calling back to the whole tarot card thing, like, from your point of view, yeah, that should look like logic, but is it really, or is it just the way it's being perceived?
Yeah, and Eris kind of, I don't remember exactly when we would have received this one in game. But this is kind of the I think first indication that Eris is like, I'm not going to play by the expectations. I'm not going to
Yeah.
use this power that I am gathering to wipe Xivu off the face of the planet myself. I'm going to make her no longer an issue, but I'm going to do it my way, in a way that isn't being predicted by Savathun.
Which I think would lend it more strength.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like, that's the whole idea here, is how do we take strength away from Xivu Arath and Savathun, even though, like, obviously, like, Savathun is here, like, she is a light bearer now, like, she can just be rezzed over and over again. But if Eris can do what she's doing without feeding the other two, and I say the other two, without for 100% without feeding Xivu Arath, but without even, like, doing it separately from the Witch Queen, so that way the Witch Queen can't just walk over and go, see, I told you this was going to happen. Like, that, even that is taking power away from Witch Queen. Like, not physical power and, like, the whole worm energy chain thing, but, like, just, showing Savathun, like, you're not really in charge of anything. Like, you had an idea of what was going to happen through a lot of this because you set the choices kind of in motion. But at the end of the day, we really do kind of, like, make our own fate. But even Eris calls it out here, like, I'm not here because of fate. I'm here because of will and machination. Like, she willed it into existence for her to do what she's doing, and
Yeah.
it's her own way of doing it. Therefore, it can't be tied to fate. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I like this.
I think the biggest blow we can give to Savathun at this point is do something she didn't expect
Yeah.
or plan for, at
Yep.
least.
Though I do still
So
think it's fucked up that Eris signs the whole thing off with Ayat, and I'm like, God damn it, Eris! You were doing really good.
well, and it's interesting because Eris is doing that, like, it will be this way because it must be this way is essentially what she's saying there.
She should have said it. I bought, right?
Yeah, right. It
Yeah.
will be this way because I will
Because
make
I
it this
willed
way.
it this way. Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know that she's ever come across that particular terminology, to be honest. I think the first time it's been said is in this
The
lore book.
previous, yeah.
So yeah. Uh, but following this is another entry from Eris. This is chapter 11, titled "They Drink Strong Poison." But the verse number 11 is titled "The Truth," and it goes like this. The hive are not a monolith. They have internal contradictions, strife, tensions. These threaten to engulf them. There is a fissure forming that I alone behold with open eyes. It will one day yawn and gape, and something will crawl from it which will shake the hive's foundations. Perhaps that thing is me. They sense this possibility and cling to their imperative truth out of fear. To this end, Xivu Arath lies to herself continuously. With each deception, she immures herself in a great fiction she must restore with each forming crack. This is why they fear and revere their own logic. The first doubt, the oldest doubt, the Entauixona, it would destroy them. To this end, Oryx's grand philosophy encompasses everything it touches, every paradox, every conflict. Love is death, war is love, and what is at peace is sick. Even his defeat was a movement towards the final shape, as he knew that his killer would become him. In his logic, that is all his killer could become. It makes failures into proofs so that their logic may weather them. It will all collapse one day. I will make sure of it. I will break their truth by my becoming. I have stolen much from the hive. I took their eyes, their fetid magic, and now I have taken from them again. Each time I descend into the deep, I take what I need, and take what I am owed. Just as the taken king slew Akka to satiate his worm. I see now, with all my years of study and strife, all my years of venturing into the dark, so that I may put my eyes to good use. I have conjured him. This is what Xivu Arath sees when she beholds my morph. Her brother, triumphant, reborn. In this way, I am truly loved. And that's the end of that verse.
So I feel like Eris might be going a little mad, especially towards the end of this one. I don't know, man.
Yes
This
and
is
no. So if we reference back, I believe the end of our Books of Sorrow series, we talked about some entries that were edited slash added on by the hive remaining after Oryx's death.
right.
where they
Oh,
discussed.
the ones that came with the Shadowkeep
Yes,
puzzle.
yep.
Yeah.
In that, the Hive discussed that the Guardian that slew Oryx was not the one that would take the mantle of the Taken King, take up the mantle of Oryx. It was Eris, because Eris was the one that wielded us as her weapon.
We were just the instrument. We weren't the
We were the
actual.
right. We were
Okay.
the instrument of her revenge,
Yep.
of her fighting against Oryx. And they assumed that she would become the Taken King, that she would become the be the one to claim the mantle of Oryx. And in a way, she kind of has. In Season of the Witch, she became a hive god.
Yeah.
Uh, and that I think is what she's saying here is Xivu Arath is seeing the killer of Oryx assume the role of a hive god.
Oh.
To Xivu, this is all in perfect order. This is
This
how
is
things were
exactly how
meant
it
to
should
be.
have been. Yeah.
And so that's Eris is saying like Shivu sees me as her brother triumphant. His
Yeah.
logic is being proven by me joining their pantheon.
Okay. Interesting. I never really thought of it that way, but that's, I mean, that, shit. You broke my brain. Yeah. She even says it in here. I took their I took their eyes, I took their magic. Every time I descend into the deep, I take what I need and I take what I am owed. Like,
Yeah.
she is the Taken King. Like, she's even almost kind of accepting that she is the Taken King. Like, but not really accepting it. She's just like, okay, well, this is how Z. Man, that is brilliant. That really is brilliant. I like
She's
this.
again, she is assuming the mantle, but not in the way that
Not through sword
was
logic, not through the way
right.
that that's predicated,
I mean, I kind
not the
of
way
it
that's
kind of
fated.
is right. Not in the
Right. Like,
way, not in the traditional fashion. Like it's not. She's like, okay, I'm taking his seat. You all are, you. This brood is now mine, kind of
bow
thing.
to take an heiress. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very much like I'm going to use the idea that I can assume that role as a weapon against you.
Man, it really is brilliant. Like, because then she is breaking the logic. Like, now she is like,
Yeah,
on the one hand, from Xivu Arath's point, and again, that's the whole thing about this. It's all about interpretation and point of view. It's like, from Xivu Arath's point of view, oh, well, she did exactly what she was supposed to do. But from Aerith's point of view, she's like, not really. I mean, like, I kind of did, but no, I'm using this for my own will and my own ideas and my own way of doing this. So yeah, man, man.
so that brings us to the final chapter of Sororicide, uh, titled "Love," with the verse title "The Wish," and it is penned by Savathun. And it goes like this. Eris will comport herself beautifully. I wish I could behold her morph. I can see it in my mind's eye. Her Titan will engulf her. Her eyes will be uncovered. She will laugh. And what a delightful sound that will be after everything. Genuine, full of my guile and my sister's zest for life. I may still see her morph. There is still time. I'll be so proud of her. It will seem like fate, something that couldn't have happened any other way. But Eris is smart enough to recognize my touch. She will realize it was me and understand that this was what I made her for. She'll see all the intricacies of the path I have laid before her from the moment my nephew raised his sword. Not too long ago, that understanding would have starved me. Now it's just icing on the cake. I hope she's not too upset. Well, I'm sure she'll get over it. There were contingencies, of course. It's foolish to put all of your eggs in one basket. One must lay snares and set events in motion that may never quite snap into place. But this was easy, perfectly aligned. Xivu Arath will make it clear why it had to be this way. She will do exactly what I know she will do, because that is all she is ever able to do. Anything else would kill her. Because in the end, my sister just wants someone to love, fully and completely. And she's given up on me. So I will give her Eris Mourn. And that is the end of the verse and the book.
I feel like this is just Savathun, like, kind of like giving us the middle finger. Like, haha, told you so. Told you I could do it. Told you I laid all this shit out.
All part of my plan.
All part of the plan. Like, she is the biggest bullshitter.
Now, what is an interesting implication, though, says she will see all the intricacies of the path I have laid before her from the moment my nephew raised his sword. So Savathun is taking credit for everything that happened to Eris since Crota.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Now, what is interesting is that this verse is titled The Wish.
Yep.
We know Savathun has had dealings with Ahamkara by nature of Riven at the very least.
Yep.
It's possible that Eris ended up where Eris ended up because Savathun,
God damn it,
made a wish.
God damn it, Mythborn. This whole goddamn universe runs off of stupid wish magic and stupid Savathun. This is... I can't say it's bullshit because it's not like... Damn it, Myth.
It could be unrelated. It could be in reference to, like, I'm giving Xivu Arath her wish, or, you know, I'm making Eris...
That, like, she really is in control of all the... Like, fate really isn't a thing because Savathun just wished everything. God damn it,
I mean,
this is some horse shit.
I don't know how on the nose they're trying to be with that title, but
I don't know.
It's there. We're speculating.
Damn it. I thought we'd outsmarted her. Nope.
Never
outsmart the liar. The goddess of trickery. This is some bullshit, Myth. This is some like, oh my God. I do like that though. Like, she calls it out and she's like, well, not long ago, that understanding would have starved me. Like, we know that her whole thing is like the misunderstanding of Savathun.
Yeah.
And like, if all of this had been figured out before she became of the light, that might have actually killed Savathun.
Very possibly.
And now it's just kind of like, haha, told you so.
Yep.
Like, God damn it. All right. Though I do like it, like, so as far as like the season of the witch, like the last thing to happen was, you know, Savathun being brought back, and she's like, she starts talking to Eris, and Eris just fucking murders her. Like, yeah, you're dead. It's like, what the hell is that? Did you just res her just to kill her? Just to kind of like give a middle finger back to Savathun? I get it. Like, but come on, Eris. Like, let's collect ourselves.
It was so she could gain her power.
Exactly.
But I'm sure it had that secondary effect of just being really satisfying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right. Well, yeah, that is Books of Sorrow, Book 8.
Yep, Sororicide.
Verse 8, Sororicide. Okay, well, let's do some shout-outs then.
Which, real quick, I realized we didn't do this. For anyone not familiar, sororicide is the act of killing one's own sister. So that's where the name of the book comes from. Yeah.
Checks out. All right,
now shout-outs. So yeah, we have a couple shout-outs. One of which is uh, very long. We had a very excited listener, so
I
thank
love it.
you for
I
that.
love seeing the excitement.
Um,
It makes me so happy.
I may have a slightly abridged version that I read out just for the sake of time here. Um, but without further ado, the first one comes to us from Apple Podcasts. Uh, Only I Karma Kai, I believe is the
I like it.
username. Left a very kind 5-star review titled "Warlock turned Hunter. I love both equally."
Liar. You can't lie to
uh,
us. We know you're a warlock at heart. Just like I'm a Titan
uh,
at heart. I have to accept
yep,
this. We all have to
yep.
accept what we are.
But they go on to say in their review, Destiny at first was my escape from me yelling at my TV because I was being griefed in GTA Online. But this game really grew on me. I've always been a sucker for a good game that has good storytelling like Destiny. I've always been into Kemetic and Greek mythology as a child, so to see characters like Osiris and even Rasputin have deeper inspiration makes me very excited. Plus, this was the first game that I've played to ever get the bow mechanics to the letter. I also met my current best friend because of doing the comfort dance and emote on IO. Um, they go on to say, for the last 2 years, I have played this podcast during my overnight shifts, train, bus rides, and in between my personal time doing chores around the house. Hearing how dedicated you two were to put out content when even when you were sick and not as capable to deliver a wide vocal range, even just shows the commitment. I'd add 10 stars to this review if I could. Well, thank you. Uh,
Yay. I
my
love
favorite
that.
episodes has to be the Bray series.
Oh,
Here, it is a good one.
I
That was a
love
fun
the
one.
Brace series. That's my favorite.
Here's to the two of you being my favorite way to follow the behind the scenes of this game that I wish I knew about earlier in my gaming career. See you, Starside. Uh,
Everyone's got to start somewhere, man. Like I
Absolutely.
started with Taken King and I was hooked ever since. Like I didn't get the full original. I got a very very small taste of the original, which was the summer before Taken King came out. I had gone down to my friend's house, and he had the game and it was hilarious because like he really had no clue what we were doing the whole time, and so like I just kind of played while he was at work, while I was staying with him for a week. And like one night he was sitting there playing, and like he got a random invite, and so he joined the thing, and he's standing in front of something on the ground, and he picks it up, and now he has a shield in his hand, and he's running around with a shield in his hand. Come to find out, he's in Vault of Glass, and that's the relic that he picked up, and he's just running around like shooting things with it, and everyone's screaming like, "What are you doing?" Like, "Oh God, he picked up the relic! Save him! Save it!" Like it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And so yeah, it's yeah, there's lots of stories in this game that are not forefront. I will admit, Bungie is definitely doing a better job of putting those stories forefront. But
Yes.
there's still a lot of little intricate details that are kind of hidden in the background that Myth and I really like exposing those and dissecting those.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely. Uh, they one final PS from this commenter was I do feel that Bungie added the myths and stories bit to shine a
yes,
light on you. Keep it at the end of every episode. I
some
intend to.
some intern somewhere did that. Like to you, lonely intern, we see you and we recognize you. Yeah,
Yes, but thank you very much for the review. And it's just cool to kind of see where everyone has come from
absolutely.
with Destiny and how they've gotten here, and that's always fun to see. So I'm glad we can be a part of that.
Yeah.
Our next one comes to us via email. Um, say I won't divulge the names here just because emails are not public, so I will keep them anonymous unless they say otherwise. But this person says, "Hello, my podcast app won't let me write a review, but I feel you guys deserve to know that your podcast is truly amazing. I love Destiny for its gameplay, but listening to your episodes, I am now invested in the lore and the characters. I could listen to the two of you for hours and hours. You sirs are making my work days and gaming experience better." Well, thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like I said, I think like it's funny when we think of Destiny and we think of like Destiny killers, right? Like Anthem, like Outriders, like there were games that were like trying to compete with Destiny, and Destiny's still here. Like the gunplay and gameplay is for the space that it exists in, it is second to none. I think Bungie has nailed the hell, even the bow mechanics of Mr. Karmakai over there.
Mm-hmm.
I love bows in Destiny. Trinity Ghoul is my baby. I have 100. I think I'm up to 120,000 kills on it, and that's only since the tracker started tracking numbers.
Yeah.
I have well over 300,000 kills with Trinity Ghoul. Um, yeah, Myth has turned me on to Leviathan's Breath. I use Leviathan's Breath as kind of like a little bit of a meme, a little bit of joke, and then Myth like had me use it since its rework, and it's kind of pretty goddamn powerful. Like
It could slap.
yeah, for its like damage type and its ammo economy, like it's really good. It's a lot more good than I realized it. I haven't had a chance to mess with a strand bow of this season. Like that's my new like toy to figure out, but that's gonna be that's my next one. So yeah,
Yeah.
I do love a good bow.
Say the bow from the dungeon is a pretty good strand bow.
Oh, I forgot that was a strand bow. I may have to mess with that one. I still
Yeah.
need the freaking sidearm, man. Like my son got it, you got it. We're out here flapping in the wind. No
You'll get
sidearms
it.
for us.
You'll get it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But our final shout out for the evening, again, is an email, so I'm going to leave them anonymous. But they brought something to our attention that is kind of a technical support thing, but it's alarming enough that I want to talk
Oh,
about it so that
Myth,
everyone knows.
Myth went into full panic mode before before the recording of this when we realized that this is actually a thing, and so we are going to address it now.
Yeah. So this person says, I was just wondering if there's a way to access some of your older podcast content. Right now, if I wanted to listen to Books of Sorrow, uh, I'd have to start from part 7. I'm not sure how much further back your podcasts go, but I'd like to start towards the beginning because I'm new to the Destiny world. Thanks so much for the help and keeping up with the great work. So thank you.
First off,
First of all,
welcome and thank you. Yeah.
yes. Welcome to
Welcome to
this
the wonderful
crazy
world of
world.
Destiny. Yeah.
Uh, Also, thank you for pointing this out because I had no idea that our previous episodes were being truncated by the different streaming services. Um, so come to find that there is a default limit on the number of episodes that can be hosted across those various different services, Spotify and Apple and such. I was not aware of that. And so when I did all of the setup on this stuff, I didn't bother to mess with any of that. The good news is I believe we have tracked down the setting that was causing that with our kind of aggregate system and have upped that limit to 999, which is the highest it will go.
Yay.
So hopefully by the time of this episode's release, all of those older episodes will be available again.
We also didn't realize that we would surpass 100 episodes.
This is also true. Yes.
Yeah.
So apologies for anybody that has been trying to find that stuff and wasn't able to. That's what was going on there. I think it's fixed now. Very worst case, if you can't find it anywhere else, it should always be available on our Podbean page, which is just mythsandstories.podbean.com. It's not the most convenient way to listen, but it should always be there.
We did double check that one, and when you scroll to the bottom, just keep hitting load more, and there's 13 pages of us on there, so just keep going until you run out of until the load more button doesn't show up. And our very first episode, Penguins of Europa, is all the way at the bottom. So yes, they do still exist. They are still out there. It's just for whatever the RSS feed wasn't picking up anything past the most recent 100 that were being released. So hopefully we've got it sorted out by the time we release this one, and you won't have to worry about it.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's it for shout outs this week. if you liked what you heard and you want to support us in some way, best way to do it, leave a review on your platform of choice. If it's a platform that can do text reviews and you feel strongly enough, we like reading those. Otherwise, you can reach out at Myths and Stories on Twitter or mythsandstories@gmail.com if you want to reach out that way, and you may hear yourself as a future shout out.
Yeah. Well, I guess I got to give a thank you. Let's thank Eris.
Yeah.
Which I guess in turn is actually thanking Savathun because Savathun says so. So
don't think that hard about it.
I refuse. I'm just gonna thank Eris for doing what it takes to become Mommy Eris. You're the best. Yay, Hive Eris. I love Hive Eris. She just kicks in doors and tells people to fuck off, and that's her deal. And you can't tell her otherwise because her fate is her own. Yes. Thank you, Eris, for being a badass. All right, Myth. Anything else?
That's it.
Alrighty. Well, then from all of us lore daddies to all of you nerds and guardians out there, we'll see you next time.
You found your people. Guardians do love their myths and stories.